The Old Guard 2 is the brand new Netflix film, which just hit the streaming service this past Friday. This is the sequel to the original Netflix film, which came out all the way back in 2020. Back in the leading role as Andy is Charlize Theron, leading her tag group of immortal warriors trying to save humanity. Also back from the first film is Niall, who is the last immortal, played by Kiki Lane. Booker, played by Matthias Schoenaerts, Joe, played by Marwan Kenzari, and Nikki, played by Luca Marinelli. Also Copley, who's played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. But as the Immortals start to figure things out, they have a new big threat. The very first Immortal, who is Discord, who is played by Uma Thurman. Also helping out our hero group is Tua, played by Henry Golding. The film is an hour and 47 minutes and is rated R. Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new review here on Max Talks Movies. My name is Max. Today we're talking The Old Guard 2. So if you guys are new to the channel, guys, please hit that subscribe button and ring that bell for notifications. I do movie, TV show reviews, out of theater reactions, movie franchise rankings, and every Monday a box office show. So please consider subscribing, ringing the bell if you're new. Comment down below. Have you seen The Old Guard 2? Did you like it more or less than the original film? Was this too long for a sequel? And do you want to see a third film in this franchise? Let me know down in the comments. And also, guys, please hit the thumbs up button. So, going into this, I didn't really know what to expect. I am someone who is a fan of the first Old Guard. It's not my favorite Netflix action film they've done, but it's one that I definitely enjoyed and has gone very under the radar because the first film, as I said, came out 5 years ago. And it is weird, especially on a streaming service, to wait that long for a sequel, especially to a big hit like Old Guard was back in 2020. But I knew that Gina Price Bythewood, who directed the original film, would not be back. She also went on to direct 2022's Woman King. So her not being back to direct this did make me nervous. That really was the only nervous thing I felt about this. And I gotta say, this movie is extremely underwhelming. I think if you don't like the first one, I think you're going to hate this movie. I think if you like this movie, you're going to be extremely underwhelmed and disappointed by the sequel because I was absolutely not a fan of this movie. And I am, again, someone who seemed to be in minority, who seemed to really enjoy the first Old Guard. Now, I will say this first. As someone who has only seen the Old Guard once, didn't have time to watch Old Guard before watching Old Guard 2. So I went in pretty blind, I guess, trying to hopefully the movie would refresh me. If you have not seen the first Old Guard in a while, like myself, I think it's a good idea to watch the first one because they kind of assume you know what's exactly going on here. But there's a multiple reasons why this movie is underwhelming. There is really massive story problems with this movie and rules that they're adding to the franchise and an embarrassing ending to the movie. So, on a positive though, this cast is still very likable. The ragtag group of immortals is great. I love Kiki Lane, have not really understood why Kiki Lane really broke out really in If Beale Street Could Talk, but really in a leading role in Old Guard, has not really done much since. She's someone who I think could be a big time actress in Hollywood. She's very good. She's my favorite person on this ensemble. Henry Golding being additions, always nice. Again, Charlize Theron is a badass, and she has become one of the most badass actors, male or female, working today over the last really 10 to 15 years. And this is one of her action movies where I was not like begging for a sequel, but I love her and I think she's very believable, of course, in the action scene. She's a badass and she, again, feels like a leading actress. I'm kind of running into a wall here talking about positives because I hated really this movie and I hate to use that word, but I just did not like this movie. On a story, on an action level, I am here, I think we all are here for action scenes. But there's really only two big enough action set pieces in the film. You have the opening action scene, which just feels like it's in there to make you think there's going to be more action scenes, but there's really not. There's really an opening action scene and the third act action scene. Other than that, there is no action in the Old Guard 2. It is a lot of sitting around talking for a good hour of this movie. And as someone who liked the first Old Guard, and again, I'm not expecting top tier stuff. I just want a fun, turn off your brain action film. But because this movie has so many conversations where we're just lying around, walking around, conversation here, conversation there, chilling out the hangout, having a conversation here, it makes you poke holes into this, I think, ridiculous and convoluted plot, which is now this franchise where rules are not making sense. Not just are the rules not making sense, but they're extremely convenient rules. And I don't want to get into that because it's spoilers for the movie, but these are some of the the most convenient rules I've seen put on a franchise in a really long time, where this has to make sense and this in order for things to move on. Don't really make a lot of sense. I was excited for Uma Thurman to be part of this franchise because again, Kill Bill was my favorite, one of my favorite action franchises of all time. My favorite Tarantino films are both Kill Bills. She is one of my favorite action stars of the last 30, 40 years. And having her go up against Charlize Theron was interesting, but Uma Thurman is very misused in this movie as just another talky, over-the-top villain who really does nothing in this movie. And the fact that this movie doesn't really have a threat to it is also a problem. You just never feel like any of these characters are in real danger, which also takes that, even though they're and it's already hard enough to feel intense because again, these characters are immortals, they're not supposed to be able to die. Plus, on top, the threat itself doesn't feel like, oh my God, these people are in somewhat danger. You just never feel like these characters are, again, in danger. And this leads me to the biggest problem with this movie, and that is that really, this movie is an hour, 45-minute trailer for a third Old Guard movie. And I absolutely hate when movies do this, where when there's, I would say, 10 minutes left in the movie, I was kind of like, this feels like that it feels like the ending should be happening, but it feels like we have so much more to accomplish to make this a full movie. But this movie, I swear to God, is all set up for a third Old Guard, which has not even been greenlit by Netflix yet. And I hate when movies or shows just do this, where they're just setting up so much stuff in order to thinking they could get a sequel and deliver on the setup. But when you don't have a sequel greenlit, and even if you do, no movie should feel like incomplete. Even if it's a part one of a part two story, you still want to have somewhat of a completed story there, and then the pieces of that could make a good sequel. And I think that's what the first Old Guard was. Yes, it definitely set up the table for this movie, but it did feel like a complete action film, which had a beginning, middle, and an end, and then some setup things. Here, we get the beginning and maybe half of the middle of the story, and it feels like the next movie is going to be the second half of the middle and the end of the story. It just feels like nothing major gets accomplished in this movie. And when the credits roll, I could not believe that. And I mean, again, I think this is one of the worst endings to a movie in years, especially in action, where I thought the third act action stuff was fine. It didn't feel like the big culminating action scene that this movie needed. The hand-to-hand combat's pretty solid, but it was fine. It wasn't great. And then I honestly, my jaw dropped when the credits started rolling, and that is the ending that they went for, which is really just setup. It feels like this movie is so far finished on a story level, and I just hate movies like that. So as you can tell, I was not a fan of The Old Guard. I love this ensemble, so The Old Guard 2. I like the first movie. I'm a fan of this ensemble, especially Charlize Theron, Uma Thurman, Kiki Lane, and Henry Golding, especially too. Capable, more than capable, action stars of the last 30 years getting put together. I'm excited. But the movie under-delivered on the action, underwhelmed on the story, turned out to be more exhausting to get through than exciting. And it felt like a trailer for Old Guard 3 than an actual proper second film in a franchise. So overall, I'm going to be harsh on this one. I'm giving Old Guard 2 a 1 out of 5 stars, a 23%. What are your thoughts on the Old Guard 2? Let me know down in the comments, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.